Hello and welcome to the Owl Hoot podcast with me, Caroline Norbury. In each episode, I chat to amazing guests with way more expertise than me on topics covering the environment and sustainability. You'll get to hear the facts on climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution, as well as discover the fabulous actions that individuals and organisations are doing to mitigate and adapt to our changing world. I don't know about you, but I find it reassuring and hopeful that there are so many capable people out there doing great things for our planet, as well as inspiring me to get on and do my bit too. So without further ado, let's get on with this week's episode. Kristen Fuller is my guest on the podcast today. She is the Marketing and Communication Manager at Toastdale, a B Corp and social enterprise whose mission is to brew great beers while leading a movement to eliminate bread waste and fix the food system. Kristen studied apparel and textiles at university and went on to work in buying within the retail sector. She then retrained in social media via the Digital Mums Social Media Management course in 2016 and worked freelance before joining Toastdale in 2019. She is also a director of a social enterprise food store in southeast London, Good Food. I'm keen to hear more about Kristen and how Toast sells beer that gives joy to people and benefits the planet. So welcome, Kristen, to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here.
So I'm super excited to find out more about you and, beer and toast. That sounds like a great combination. So I'll start by asking you a bit, Kristen, about your background, what you've been doing and how you've come to be working at Toast.
So as you kind of mentioned, my history was in buying. So I was a buyer for over 10 years at various companies. And my last company I worked for was one of the Jamie Oliver businesses. And then there was redundancy and then I had my kids at the same time. And I kind of been thinking that I wanted to do something different and something that was a bit more meaningful to me as a person. And then I kind of found Good Food, which was this local social enterprise, like really mission driven, like a business that was kind of set up for the community. So doing things like donating some of the profits to food banks, like being a better food trader, just like working with like local farmers on the veg bag scheme, like donating money to the Magic Breakfast charity. And that business needed some marketing and social media support. So like you said, I retrained with Digital Mums with a focus on social media, but with kind of training in the sort of the broader aspects of marketing as well. And then so I was a freelance kind of social media marketer and then was working kind of on some other stuff. So some things with like the council in Lewisham where I live. And then I saw that advert for Toast and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like my dream job, like purpose driven, part of like an amazing team and like working in beer, like what could be better? So luckily I went and met kind of Louisa and James, who was like managing the marketing at that point, and I started working for Toast back in January 2020. So at that stage I was freelance and looking after the social media side of things mainly, but as kind of things have changed and evolved and our team kind of got hit quite hard by COVID and became much smaller, so that kind of has meant that they needed a bit more help in the marketing side. So I've sort of moved over and now I'm managing, as you mentioned earlier, the marketing and comms. So it's awesome. And I feel really lucky every day to get to work for like such a great company.
It sounds really exciting. So can you tell me then a bit about the background to Toast? How did that come about? How is it a different beer company?
Yeah, so Toast was created by our Toast master, an amazing guy called Tristan Stewart. He's a campaigner on the environmental and social impacts of food production. He's kind of this global force and he works for the UN. He's written books on food waste. He's just an incredible human being. And he ended up meeting the guys from a business called the Brussels Beer Project, who were already brewing a beer called Babylon, which sort of is a nod to the beer's origins. And I don't know kind of how much people know about how beer started, but one of the one of the things that people report is that actually some of the first beers they were made from fermenting bread. So they were already brewing this beer from bread, and he was like, oh, hang on, this is an amazing idea. So use this thing which people are wasting on a huge scale. So 44% of the bread in the UK is wasted, from supermarkets in people's homes to restaurants to like across the board. That's kind of the estimated figure. So he was like, oh, hang on, like we could take this thing that's being wasted and use it to make an incredible thing to spread the word about the waste that's happening, and also provide solutions to people. So it was launched in 2016 on Jamie and Jimmy's Friday Night Feast, and kind of that's how it all began.
So it's really interesting you say that actually beer initially was made with bread, and now we've come full circle and gone, oh, hang on a minute, we've got one of these ingredients quite surplus everywhere. And that figure that you mentioned of 44% is phenomenally high. I mean, that's a scary number when you think about how much bread the UK citizen consumes, and that's a lot of waste. So
Yeah.
how easy is it to use bread within the process?
So we in the past have worked with sandwich factories, and we actually now work with a bakery. So bakeries are kind of have to overproduce to meet demand. So there's kind of, in the way that the food system is set up at the moment, there will always be waste, sadly. So this is one of the things that we kind of campaign about, is that actually we need to change the food system to stop this sort of endemic waste. So it's not just bread that's wasted. There's, loads of potatoes are a really big culprit, and bananas, and so there's a few different food groups, but around a third of food that is produced is actually just goes to waste. And again, from farm to fork, it's not just in people's homes, it's everywhere across the food system. So actually, sadly, it's really easy to find bread to put into our beer.
So after that initial starting point of this is a great idea, using waste bread and putting it into beer, how did funding come about? Because I know you're a social enterprise, so is it set up in a similar sort of way to a normal business, or did you have to go and get funding from other places?
Yeah, so actually the business started, so Tristram put in the seed funding to begin with, and then we did 2 reward-based crowdfunding to kind of get investment from people to help us scale so that we could grow. And then in 2018, the business did a raise with bigger investors, so kind of singular people who were able to put in sort of larger amounts of money via something that sort of our 3 co-founders set up. So Tristram, Rob, who's our chief toaster or CEO, and Louisa, who is another co-founder and our COO. And they came up with this kind of thing called Equity for Good. So it's kind of a legally binding pledge made by investors, and they agree to reinvest a proportion of their net capital gains in another social enterprise or social impact investment fund. So the idea of that kind of, if they were putting money into Toast, then any money gained would continue to do good. Like they're legally bound to reinvest any extra money into other sort of socially good companies.
Cool.
We've also been helped with a few loans and grants along the way. So that's kind of, takes us where we are now.
Great. So you've got your funding. Then how do you go about deciding what types of products? Because the beer market is vast, isn't it? What products have you got, and why have you chosen them?
Yeah, so we've got kind of four core beers in our range, which kind of give like enough kind of choice. And these are beers that we brew all the time. And so we've got a craft lager, an American pale ale, a session IPA, and just a regular pale ale. And these kind of core beers, we are in Waitrose with some of them, Ocado and Co-op, and independents as well. We're in restaurants and pubs. So we sell these beers kind of on tap, but also in bottles and cans. So that's kind of our kind of core range, if you like. And then last November, we launched a range called Rise Up, which the idea behind it was counting down to it was a year until COP26, and we wanted to create something that would highlight this incredible climate change conference that was going to be really important to everyone on the planet. So we thought, how can we best talk about this, and how can we kind of increase our sort of message around it? Like something that we're really proud of as well is that we're a B Corporation. So we brewed these series of beers with other B Corps. So we did a Baker's Wit beer with Hobbs House Bakery, an Oat Pale Ale with Rebel Kitchen, a mango IPA that we did with Flawsome and Oddbox, a raspberry sour which we brewed with Rubies in the Rubble, and a lemongrass lager with Tea Pigs. So each Rise Up beer highlighted a different element of the ecological crisis and sort of provided ways in which people could help resolve that issue. So Louisa wrote a series of blogs, so one for each beer, which people can read on our website, toastale.com, to find out sort of more behind those stories. And then the Rise Up series has been sort of counting down to COP, which obviously has just finished last weekend. So the culmination, I suppose, of that countdown was a bit of a bonkers idea that got invented, I suppose, during COVID by the team, but led by Louisa and Rob. Was this kind of, how could we increase our impact even more? One of the things that we want to do is brew with 1 billion slices of bread, and so far we've done quite well. We've done 2.5 million, but we've realized that we need the whole industry to kind of be on our side and start seeing bread as an ingredient to tackle this huge waste problem that is kind of created from the food system. So we launched our companion series on the 15th of October, where we brewed, so it's 26 beers for COP26, and from every box of the companion series sold, we are donating £26 between two impact partners. So one is the Rainforest Trust and the other one is Soil Heroes. And yeah, the most amazing thing about it is that we've been able to collaborate with 24 other breweries and got all of them. So we've supplied all of them with surplus bread, or most of them with surplus bread. So yeah, all of the beers contain this kind of circular economy ingredient. So yeah, within that, we've got 2 toast beers in the companion series. So one is a juicy IPA and one is a coffee porter, which we brewed with Cafe Direct. So yeah, we've kind of started off with these kind of 4 core beers, and a few years ago, the way that the business worked was to collaborate with bakeries and breweries, and again, helping them to like brew with bread. So we have worked with over 60 kind of partner bakeries and breweries in the past as well. So, and we also do, people can brew at home. So we have an open source recipe for our pale ale that people can download. That there's over 80,000 people have downloaded the recipe from our website.
Wow.
We get inquiries like every day from kind of other breweries that want help brewing with bread, or, you know, all around the world. I had an email yesterday from someone in Germany. Just kind of, yeah, we want to kind of help as many people as we can.
Yeah, I mean that's from what you've just said there, it's more than just using, which is great. Obviously, using the waste bread in the first place in itself is a great step. But you're obviously trying to draw in lots of different ways to increase on that impact, and work with all these different collaborators. Is that because normal business is quite competitive usually? If you're trying, you know, you want your beer to stand out amongst the crowd, but you're doing a lot of work with lots of different breweries. How does that work, collaborating with people, having like a common voice amongst you to try and tackle the food system?
Yeah, so I suppose it's kind of, the idea was that like some of the best conversations happen over a beer. So people down the pub, like how could you start that conversation about the climate crisis or about food waste in a engaging, non sort of judgmental manner? So like the best kind of way to have those kind of chats is over a beer. So the idea behind Toast was to kind of brew great beers, but to spread big ideas that can change the world. So yeah, to lead this brewing movement to eliminate bread waste and fix the food system. So the core heart of the business has always been about collaboration, about sharing kind of these issues that are so important to every single person on the planet. Yeah, also in a kind of non-preachy way, so to try and do it in a positive manner, and like, how can we fix this thing, what can we do to help, what can every person do to help? And even if it's just like having a beer, then that's kind of a start. So yeah, that's kind of, and we're just really happy to work with all these amazing breweries. And what's happened, I suppose, from brewing this companion series, the other thing that we got the breweries to do was, we didn't get them to, they wanted to do it, we wrote an open letter to world leaders to say, well, if we as competing businesses can work together to kind of help fix this issue in our food system, then why can't you as like world leaders work together to fix our planet and stop climate change and limit global warming to this 1.5 degrees that's so important. So that was kind of the idea behind Companion in the lead up to COP, to sort of put our voice out there and say that we can work together, so yeah, why can't you?
Sure. It's really nice to hear that collaborative story, to get that message out there. Do you find that those that are drinking Toast beer are buying into the impacts and what the message that you're trying to get across, or are they choosing it because the beer tastes nice?
Well, we hope it's both. So yeah, we want to be like, we are a great tasting beer. That's kind of what we set out to do first and foremost, was to brew great craft beer. And we do get some really wonderful feedback from our customers. So we kind of, there's a beer platform called Untapped, where people kind of check in when they're having a beer, and they might make a comment, or they give breweries like ratings for the beers. And we have like Google reviews, then obviously all our social media, people send me emails. So we had one recently on our website where the Google reviews come up, and someone said, I recently ordered the companion series. It's great to see companies taking action to help combat and raise awareness of the climate crisis. Brilliant idea, great service, and great beer. So we are really fortunate in that we have like some really loyal customers out there, and people that are really engaging with what we're trying to do. And I think, as the kind of becomes more and more and more and more important that we combat the climate crisis, then hopefully more people will engage with our mission and start talking about these issues, and do what they can to help.
And in terms of the flavour and the taste, I'm not a beer connoisseur by any stretch of the imagination, but can somebody detect that it's a beer that contains bread? Is it got a different distinctive flavour compared to another non-bread beer?
So we replace like 1/3 of the malted barley, so that's like the main ingredient. Well, basically you use grains to brew beer, and most beer is made with this malted barley, but you can add other things like wheat or oats or various other things to give a slightly different flavour or a different mouthfeel. But essentially our beers are distinctive because they're our own recipe, but we wouldn't say that it's discernible, that you can actually taste the bread. And some of the flavours in malted barley are ready flavours anyway. So yeah, essentially most of the flavour comes from this malt, but also the hops, and even like the water used to brew the beer can have a different effect on the flavour.
Oh, right.
So yeah, you shouldn't be able to taste the bread, but some people think that they can.
I guess taste is quite a personal experience.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. So I understand that you don't actually have your own, I was going to say facility or mill. What is the right word for a brewery? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a brewery. We contract through. Yeah.
Is that an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of making your own beer?
Well, it works really well for us because
Yeah,
we're kind of, and the idea is that also that we haven't invested, we haven't had to like raise a phenomenal amount of money to invest in a facility ourselves. And also then it means that kind of we're working with a partner to again be as efficient and in turn sort of, I suppose, and environmentally friendly as possible. So if we're taking up any kind of slack capacity in their schedule, then that actually works out better for everyone. And we have our head brewer Stuart, who works with the brewery to ensure kind of they're meeting our standards and that things are being kind of done in the way that we need them to be done. Yeah, so
sure.
it works out really well.
It sounds as though every part of your business is through the lens of environment and impact and making sure it meets the sort of demand of a social enterprise right through the business. What are the main challenges been in doing that, running it with that lens on, if any?
Well, I suppose it's a really great place to be in that we're constantly challenging ourselves and trying to do all we can to improve the business, like you say, in this environmental lens, and kind of what could be in a way more important than that. And we are, as you kind of mentioned before, so we are a B corporation. So we were the first UK brewery to become a B Corp.
Cool.
And so our business has people and planet at its heart, and being a B Corp basically gives us a way to measure and demonstrate that.
For anyone, Kristen, that doesn't know what a B Corp is, can you kind of give some sort of explanation of what it means to be a B Corp and actually how easy it is to become a B Corp, or not easy to become a B Corp?
So yeah, basically it's a certification process where companies can demonstrate that they put people, planet and profit in kind of equal measure, and you have to recertify every 3 years to ensure you meet the highest standards of the areas of governance, team, customers, community and environment. So we recertified this year and were the highest rated UK brewery with 111 points. It's just a
Cool.
great way for businesses to measure how well they're doing in these kind of 5 important categories. But then equally, it's a consumer facing kind of badge. So I suppose it's that on a consumer level, it's an assurance that these companies are doing good in the world. So businesses like Waitrose, Boots and Ocado have like B Corp shops where you can just purchase from brands that are B Corp certified.
Oh.
So as I talked about earlier, our Rise Up series, we worked with B Corps. So there's some incredible businesses out there across the board, from beauty to food to drink to architects. And they're all part of this movement that is kind of, essentially like better business or business for good. So yeah, we're really proud to be part of it.
Is it easy to find? Because you said that some of your collaborators are B Corps. Is that quite easy to find people within brewing that are looking at life or business in the same way that you guys are?
Yeah, and I think increasingly so. There's quite a few UK breweries. I mean, we were the first one, but there's quite a few UK breweries now that are B Corp. So one of the ones that we worked with on Companion is one called Stroud, and they use only organic ingredients. And there's another one which we haven't worked with called Small Beer, who are a B Corp. So there are a few breweries out there, and obviously one of the biggest craft breweries around, Brewdog, are actually a B Corp as well. So it is definitely a growing movement, which we would kind of encourage all businesses to look at and be part of, because it's just kind of helps you measure how well you're doing, and how you can improve as a business.
Sure.
To kind of do your best for people and the planet.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. In terms of, again, because coming back to your ethos, and you mentioned earlier that when you had investors, that they then had to sort of reinvest into similarly thought out businesses and institutions. Where do the profits go that you make as a social enterprise?
So 100% of our profits, or 1% of our revenue, whichever is greater, goes into charities fixing the food system. So our main kind of charity partner is Feedback, and they are leading a global movement against food waste. So they work with governments, businesses and society to try and catalyse change in social attitudes and demonstrate kind of innovative solutions to tackling food waste and kind of wider food industry issues. So they're sort of our main charity partner at the moment, but we have also worked with other charities and projects in the past. So during COVID, we ran a thing called the Meal Deal, where we funded 46,000 meals for people in need. And we worked with a range of charities and projects, including one called Food for All, which was a volunteer-run relief charity, but there was sort of 5 or 6 different people that we worked with, which you can read about on our website. There's a blog dedicated to each one of those. And then most recently, our companion series, as I mentioned before, we're donating £26 from every box, or £1 from every pint sold, to between 2 impact partners. So one is the Rainforest Trust UK, which they're putting the money towards protecting trees in threatened tropical rainforests. So hopefully when we sell all of our companion boxes, that will equate to 3.25 million trees.
Wow.
So it's quite trendy at the moment to talk about planting trees, but actually what's perhaps more important is to protect the trees that we already have. So that's sort of why we chose to invest in that, and because food production accounts for 80% of deforestation. So it's trying to put money back into, well, I suppose offsetting is the wrong word, but negating that issue, I suppose, in a way. And then the other half of the money goes to an incredible business called Soil Heroes, which helps UK farmers regenerate our soils. So again, I'm not an expert on farming, but regenerative agriculture is a way of farming that is more it's better for the environment and it's better for the soil. So it helps the soil become more nutrient dense, and it in turn it sequesters more carbon, it holds more water, it increases biodiversity. So that's why we feel really passionate about sort of helping in that sector. So yeah, I mean, the dream kind of in the future is that we would source all of our barley from farms that farm in this way, in a regenerative way.
So you mentioned there about the future. Where is the ambition? It sounds like you're covering lots of bases. Where are you going to go with Toast? It sounds like quite an exciting journey already.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to carry on the work that we started with our companion series. So working to make the industry more circular by supplying ingredients to other breweries. So supplying this wasted breadcrumb to help these breweries overcome like perhaps barriers that they might have thought in the past, oh, I'd like to use bread, but like, where do I start? So we've got, years of experience with brewing with bread. So we can create this kind of core ingredient, if you like, and prepare the crumb to create the best beer. So we'd love to sort of work with the industry to make it more circular. So that's kind of our key goal going forward.
And I know that on one of your pages on the website, you refer to sort of beer activism, and and you can, as somebody looking at the page, can fill it in to write to their MP. What kind of beer activism are you advocating?
So essentially, one of the most powerful things you can do as a person on the street is to write to your MP, to have your voice heard, to join a march or join a campaign about the climate crisis. So we worked with Feedback to come up with this letter. So if people felt that they wanted to be able to write to them, people they didn't necessarily know how to phrase it or what to say. So this letter is kind of pre-written, so people can go on the website, and it essentially asks your MP to include changes to the food system in any environmental policy decisions. And basically saying that the food system can be part of the solution to the climate crisis. It was barely on the menu at COP26, but food waste accounts for 8 to 10% of emissions. So it's could have a huge impact if our government kind of recognised what role it has to play and change like our food systems accordingly. So yeah, basically we recognise that not everyone can be like Greta, but still they want to have their voice heard, and so yeah, created this letter on our website. So literally all people have to do is put in their name, I think an email address, and then where your postcode is, and then it very cleverly, I don't know how it works, works out who your local MP is and puts their name into the letter, and then all you have to do is press send.
Excellent. That makes it very easy.
Yeah, exactly. Make it easy for people to kind of have their voice heard, because I think 99% of people want to do something but perhaps feel a little bit powerless, and this is like one way where you can kind of really have an impact.
Yeah, you can absolutely engage by, as you say, getting your MP to know that this is what you feel about this, and food affects us all because we've all got to eat. So
exactly.
it gives us a nice, easy way in to think about, well, what can I do? Well,
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you guys would say drink our beer in the first place, but obviously so much more than that.
That is obviously one of the most simple things people can do is raise a toast, save the world, cheers.
Nice.
As our tagline goes. But yeah, this MP letter is just an added extra.
And how much fun does it feel does work feel like fun when you're working for a beer company that is trying to, have a significant impact from an environmental perspective on the world?
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean it's really loafly. Oh, lovely. And
lots of puns.
I mean we're a tiny team. Like there's only 6 of us, but just incredible people. Like I've never worked in a business like it where everyone is so positive and so driven and so enthusiastic, and it's just a really wonderful atmosphere to be part of. And essentially my job is talking about something serious, which is kind of threatening us all, but attempting to do it in a positive way and come up with solutions and try and kind of galvanize this energy around thinking about things differently and how we can all be part of the solution. And that the food system, like you say, it's something we all engage with. We all have to eat, but the system is broken, but that doesn't mean that we can't fix it if we all work together. So this kind of idea of collaboration is really, really key to the business. And like I mentioned, the companion series. So the word actually, so this is a little secret for you, Caroline. Tristram wanted to call the business companion because the word com is together. I might get this wrong, my Latin is not great, but I think the word com is together in Latin, and the word panis is bread, so it's kind of coming to the word companion is coming together over bread. But poor Tristram lost out to he was outvoted and we got called Toast, so that we've been able to use this incredible word for this latest series where we have worked with all these other breweries has made our Toastmaster very happy.
Excellent. It's always good to make the Toastmaster happy, I imagine.
Exactly.
So bringing things to a close, where do you hope the brewing industry, or maybe perhaps wider, what do you hope beer production will look like by 2050?
So one of the most important things the industry can do now is to looking to switch to renewable power as soon as possible, and then also working towards renewable heat as well, and then obviously looking at our supply chains to sort of source ingredients in a way that's better for the planet. So as I mentioned before, kind of working with farmers who are regeneratively farming their barley, plus using, bread waste isn't going to disappear. We wished it would. We'd love not to have any bread waste, but so using any bread waste or other grains that would have otherwise kind of be surplus is something that kind of we we would see continuing to happen, but we would love like the whole of the industry to start using these waste ingredients. And also I think all breweries should sort of put a lot of energy hopefully into supporting their customers to be more circular. So packaging is one of the biggest areas of impact for us as a business, and for most breweries, I would suspect. So how to reduce the impact of that packaging and the emissions that come with that. So getting people to, what we would love to be able to do, for example, is our glass bottles, for people to be in a place where people could return those to us and we could just keep reusing them. Like recycling is great, and we encourage all of our customers to recycle the cans and the bottles, but reuse is much better, obviously. And being able to, perhaps in the future, we'd love to be able to have a tap room where people could come and bring growlers. So growlers are like a big vessel for beer, where it holds around 4 pints, I think. I might have got that wrong. And people could just refill those, take them home, drink their beer, and then bring it back and do the same again. And there's no packaging impact at all.
Yeah.
So that would be great. Really awesome.
I like that idea.
The main things.
Thanks. Oh no, I like that idea.
Basically committing to like a net zero pathway, essentially. And it's not offsetting emissions, it's trying to reduce your emissions to as small as possible, rather than trying to offset them by planting trees. It's actually just working as a business to kind of have smaller impact as possible.
And I think that's a really good point, isn't it? Because it is way easier to say, we'll plant a load more trees to cover any difficult things that we have to do in the process, rather than actually, as you say, let's embrace it a little bit further than that and see if we can go more to source rather than plastering afterwards. So that brings me nicely to the last question. From what you've said about yourself, you obviously have been mindful of the environment for some time, and this is why you've been drawn to doing the job that you're doing currently. Are there things that you've done in your own life that you've been sort of implementing sort of sustainable practices for a while because of just the general travel of your own life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, and I learn something new every day, I think. So I try and listen to podcasts to get sort of more tips and ideas, reading books. I mean, just one of the first things that I did was switching to a renewable energy provider, because obviously kind of the way that our energy is made is one of the biggest impacts on emissions at the moment. And just trying to do everything I can in sort of be as conscious as a consumer as possible. So making kind of conscious decisions about the brands that I buy, even like the food that I buy as well, obviously trying to go to farmers markets for the fruit and veg, like work sourced locally for as much as you can, which is a real focus of Good Food, as the business, the local deli that I'm part of and that I'm a director of. And encouraging my children to be global citizens and think about the impact of everything that they do, because obviously they're inheriting this world from our generation, and trying to encourage them to be outside, even if it's just being outside and digging for worms or something, just appreciating like the soil and how incredible like the natural world is, and that we're part of that natural world. And just kind of buying less, I suppose. I used to be part of the kind of fashion industry, but I can't remember the last time I bought any clothes. It's just, do I need this thing? Do I actually need it? And actually, I have enough. And let's just be grateful for what we're living in, this kind of first world, and all the things that we have, that we're fortunate to have.
That's a great way to finish the podcast, with you reflecting on gratitude for where we are and what we've got. Thank you so much, Kristen, for being on the episode today. It's been so insightful into an area that that we can all appreciate in terms of beer and the environment. So thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Caroline. It's been lovely to chat to you. You are definitely the host with the most.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Cheers.
Total pleasure.
Cheers seems like an appropriate ending, actually.
Yes, raise a toast, save the world. Cheers.
Well, it's not every day you get a chance to talk about beer, and I have to say it was super interesting to find out how brewing beer can address food waste issues. I guess it's about rebranding food waste so that it can become a food ingredient or a material that can be repurposed. Toast are certainly on a mission to facilitate fixing the food system, and I got a sense that all aspects of their business are undertaken through an environmental lens. If you want to find out more about their beer and the work they are doing, take a look at the links in the show notes. I'd like to thank Andy Shaw for audio editing, Jeremy Jones for providing the music, and to you, of course, for listening. Don't forget you can subscribe to get automatic access to each new episode, and it would be lovely if you could rate, review and share the podcast too. It really helps. Until next time, bye for now.